if you're new here and you enjoy whispered true crime, please consider subscribing to the channel. I post 2 times a week, on Monday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I recommend using headphones if you would like to hear the gentle mic brushing. Alright, so for tonight's case, we are traveling to the great state of Missouri. So shout out to all my friends out in Missouri. This case takes place in the years 2012 and 2013 in Springfield, Missouri. And it is the case of the Staudte family. So let me tell you a bit about this family. Diane and Mark were husband and wife, living in Springfield, Missouri, in a pretty small house, considering their needs. They had 4 children, and their house was about 900 square feet. Now, by the year 2012, they had their eldest son, whose name was Sean. He was 26. Their eldest daughter, Sarah, was 24. Rachel was 22. And the youngest, Brianna, was 9 years old. Diane was 49 and Mark was 61. There were a lot of issues to deal with in this home, in no particular order. First, there was Mark, the husband. He played in a local band, was a blues band. He was the guitarist and lead vocalist. And that was the only work that he did. He didn't have any other kind of job. And it didn't really bring in money. His band played in local bars, and for most people it would kind of be like a side gig, I suppose. But he didn't do anything else. And that was pretty rough on Diane, who was the sole breadwinner for a family of 6. And she worked as a nurse for a health insurance company. And she had to take care of all of these kids, and although 3 of the 4 were adults by this year, 2012, there was still a lot to be done for them, even being adults. You see, Sean, the eldest, he had autism, which you can imagine put a bit of stress and strain on Diane. Then there was the youngest, Brianna, who had a learning disability. Then there was Sarah. She had just graduated from college with wonderful grades, but she was back at home It was a couple of days before Easter when Mark, the husband, the father, his band noticed that he did not look right. He was turning kind of yellow, and he just wasn't making sense. The things that he said, like he didn't know what was going on half the time. But they didn't really know what it was, and I guess they didn't make much of it at that moment. Now, on Easter Day, he was pretty sick. He had severe flu-like symptoms. And it was, as I said, Easter, so of course Diane was heading off to church. And she saw how he was, but she left. By the time she got back from church, he had a ring of blood around his mouth, and he was no longer alive, sadly. When she was later asked, "Why didn't you call the doctor? Why didn't you take him to the hospital?" she said that she mentioned it to him, but he said he didn't want to go to the hospital or see the doctor, so that's why she had left and gone to church. Alright, well, these things can happen, right? The doctors felt that it was natural causes. He wasn't in the greatest shape. You know, he's a little bit overweight, and he had a little bit of a drinking problem. I don't think he was an alcoholic, but he did drink his fair share of alcohol. So they didn't look into it, and she didn't ask for an autopsy. And he was cremated. She put a short post on Facebook telling her friends and family about the passing of her husband. And people were pretty shocked, like out of nowhere. Mark just died, and they didn't hear anything except on Facebook. And there wasn't much of a ceremony or anything for him, just like a couple of the people who work at the church came to her house and said a few words. I don't know, it was him. Alright, well, he got about $20,000 from life insurance, or I should say she got it. Not a lot of money, but enough to buy a house that was just a little bit bigger and a little bit more comfortable. So they picked up and moved. Same town, just different street. And 5 months after the death of Mark, her son Sean, he became very, very ill with flu-like symptoms. And next thing you know, he passed away as well, also with a ring of blood around his mouth. Now she told the police or the doctors that just said, "Oh yeah, my son died." Just like that. It was very strange. But that was that. Now let's jump up a little to June of 2013. It's really just a few months later. And the daughter, the eldest daughter, Sarah, 24 years old, she became deathly ill. And she was rushed to the emergency room. She was in almost total organ failure, and there was bleeding in her brain. Now, she was young and healthy. She didn't have any kind of disorders, no conditions, no nothing. Now, this is the one who had graduated from college and had no job. That's the one. And the doctors are racking their brains trying to figure out what is wrong with this girl. And she is so close to death. Like, seriously. They tested everything they could think of. Meanwhile, the pastor of Diane's church had become very suspicious. Somebody told him at church that Sarah was in the hospital clinging to life, and Diane was there in church like nothing was happening, just like normal every day. And he was like, this is not normal. He had been trying all along to counsel her and comfort her on the 2 prior deaths, and she didn't seem like a natural grieving woman at that time. And this thing with Sarah, he said, this can't be okay. I have to report this. So he calls the police and he reports it anonymously that this woman, she had 2 recent deaths in her family, and now a 3rd member of the family is clinging to life. And he really suspects that she is doing something. So the detective on the case speaks to the doctor, to Sarah's doctor, and he said, yeah, something's not right here. He said that Diane was there just acting very casual, talking about her upcoming trip to Florida while her daughter was dying. And that he's starting to believe that she might have been poisoned. So the detective calls Diane down to the police station for an interview. Just a casual interview. You know, he's got no evidence of anything at this point. And Sarah is still living. So he starts talking to her. And he's saying, hey, you know, he wants to be careful because he knows that it is possible that it's all just a lot of bad luck. So he doesn't want to say the wrong thing, just in case. So he's saying to her, hey, you know, it's pretty terrible. First your husband, then your son, now your daughter is so sick. And after a while of talking with her, she finally comes out with the information that she knows they were all drinking antifreeze. That's right, antifreeze. You've heard of that before if you've been watching my channel for a while. The story of Stacy Castor. She also used antifreeze as a poison, but anyway, they're not really related. The cases, not at all. And this case actually happened after Stacy Castor. You know they were drinking antifreeze because you were giving it to them, right? So she finally comes clean. Yes, she was putting it in her husband's Gatorade, and she was putting it in her son and daughter's Coca-Cola. And she did it because it has no taste and they couldn't notice it. And why? Why was she poisoning her own family members? Why? Well, she said that her husband was so lazy and she hated him. He had thrown things at her when he was angry and she had had enough of him. And why Sean? Well, Sean, being autistic, he was, as she said, more than a pest. Worse than a pest, even. And what about Sarah? What's up with that? Well, she was just a drain on the family because soon they were going to have to pay off these loans and she couldn't even get a job. So then why, if she wanted Sarah to die, why did she bring her to the hospital? Well, she didn't want another dead body in the house because of the smell. Better that Sarah should die at the hospital, not at home. So she was arrested, obviously, after that confession. And they got a search warrant for the house. And they went down there to see what they could see, look for more evidence, more information. And of course they saw the antifreeze. It was in the garage, just like she had said it would be, next to a case of Coca-Cola cans, or bottles actually, I think. But another thing that they found was a purple diary that was sitting on a bookshelf. Like the books were all lined up like this, and then the diary was on top. The diary was sitting on top of all the books. So it was like right out there, like, come look at me, So they opened up the diary, and it was Rachel's diary. Rachel was the favorite child, remember? The 22-year-old. And what they found in that diary really was unexpected to everyone. She wrote about the upcoming death of her father. Let me read to you what she wrote. Quote, "It's sad when I realized how my father will pass on in the next 2 months. Sean, my brother, will move on shortly after. It will be tough getting used to the changes, but everything will work out." So, they didn't tell her anything, but they brought her down to the station just for some routine questioning. And then ultimately they told her what they knew, and she admitted that she had been helping her mother to poison her family. And she pretty much agreed with the same things that her mother said in terms of the reasons why. But she did say that she had felt that Sean would have been okay to just send to like a group home or something rather than killing him. Like, that was her idea, but her mother felt that he had to go, so she went along with that. But otherwise she seemed to agree with her mother. She said, quote, "As far as Dad, it was for a little piece. Sean, because he was annoying, and Sarah was just nosy." She also told just means that you accept being guilty, but you don't actually admit to being guilty, basically. You know, you don't ever come out and say, I did it. You don't have to say that you did it, but you're taking the plea of guilty, basically. Now, the youngest daughter, Brianna, who was 9 at the time that this all started, she wound up in foster care, and we don't really get to hear anything much about what became of her because she was a minor, and they wanted to keep it confidential for obvious reasons. And Sarah, she wound up forgiving her mother and sister due to her Christian faith. And here's what she said. Quote, I prefer to be a survivor than a victim. I forgive my mom for what she did to me, but she not only took away my dad and brother, but she took away my lifestyle, livelihood, and my independence. So that is the case. And it just started to rain here, so if you hear that, that's what it is. So what do you think? Well, let me tell you some of my thoughts. Let's start with Sarah. How is it possible to forgive 2 people who did this to you? Your own family, your mother and your sister. They poisoned you, tried to kill you because you were a burden since you had loans that were coming due and you didn't have a job. And not only did they try to kill you, they took away your father and your brother. Well, I guess we all realize that it's healthier for a person to forgive and not hold on to the anger. It doesn't mean that you forget or that you think it's okay, but you come to a level of peace, I guess. But I definitely feel very, very awful for her. It's just too much for one person. Imagine that. Like, not only all that hurt, all those emotions that she would have to deal with, but now she is permanently disabled. When before that, she was perfectly healthy, and she had just graduated from college. Just so unthinkable. Now, what do you all think about Rachel? Did her mother mold her into this? Did her mother groom her into this? Or is she equally as responsible? I mean, she got a lesser sentence simply because was it that they just had such a close relationship? There was such camaraderie there and so much bonding that they shared everything with each other, including this whole plan to eliminate pretty much everyone in their household. And then wouldn't it have been something if she would have then turned around and eliminated Rachel as well at the end? Especially if Rachel never went ahead and got a job or anything. I don't know, just some crazy things I was thinking about. So, anyway, it's an awful, awful story. Like, completely horrible how people can do this to their own family members. Like, your mother is the person who you expect to love you the most out of anyone, and this is what happens. So, my heart goes out to all of the victims here. Mark, Sean, Sarah,